I'm recording.
Oh. Oops, I got echo. Okay, we're all set. We're live on website and Facebook.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, let's call to order a regular meeting of the Saratoga Springs Public Library Board of Trustees. Good evening, everybody. The first item is, as usual, the approval of the meeting minutes. Was a regular meeting, and then there was a special meeting in November. You've submitted changed minutes based upon Terry's changes?
That's correct. So it was the addition of that supplemental November check for $60.87 and correction of a typo.
Thank you, Terry.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Minutes are passed. Next item is the approval of expenditures. Approval of November prepaid checks 68418, 68419, totaling $563.08. Approval of December warrants 68420 to 68491, totaling $147,000, $430.48. And there's a request for reallocation of money, $20,000 from salaries to professional services and $20,000 from books to electronic resources.
Mike, I had a question on the list of warrants, check number 68445 to Carol Daggs for $4,375 that doesn't have a memo.
That really relates to the Saratoga Read season.
Okay.
Ike, did you want to say anything about the request for reallocation?
When we get down to the budget report, you'll see that we are, and we talked about this last time, that we are overspent in professional services and are likely to spend more this year because of not only the audit, but the strategic planning. And then with so many kind of on the fly personnel policy changes, we've been relying a lot on lawyers more this year than we would in a normal year, I think. And then the request for change from books to electronic resources is because we are still doing a lot of business in ebooks. Our foot traffic is low, and who knows if things continue the way they are now with infection rates, et cetera, it might get even lower. And so we think people are going to be depending more increasingly, as they have been, when you see the statistics on the digital materials than the physical ones.
Yeah, and this is no surprise based upon what we were looking at in the last couple of months.
Correct.
Mike, why is there extra money available in the salaries line that can be transferred?
Because we are working with as few people in the building as possible, so we are open fewer hours, and we are not open on Sundays. So we have extra money that would normally go to premium pay. So we actually have savings in salaries this year because we have people working fewer hours. We're open fewer hours.
Anybody else have any question about the reallocation of money? Do you want to do that now, Ike?
Sure, yeah.
So I move to approve the November prepaid checks, the December warrants, and the reallocations of $20,000 from salaries to professional services and $20,000 from books to electronic resources.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to carry approval of expenditures in the three, in the request for reallocation, or that's passed. Okay. Next is the financial reports. The November prepaids and December warrant summary sheet, which we just went over. Then there's the budget report and the income report.
So I didn't include the income report here. I did want to point out, when I'm sorry, I've neglected to include it here. On the income report, there are a couple things that that I wanted to point out to you. One is that here, let me stop sharing that. Share this. Is that you'll see in grants and aid, this $202,500, that is the first 90% of the latest construction grant for the HVAC upgrades, which arrived in November. And then you'll see that there's a little bit of a bump up in the property taxes for November from our usual monthly income. And what that includes is the pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes.
That we get that once a year, Ike,
That's correct.
and that comes to about 5,000, I guess. Okay.
That's correct.
I had no questions on the budget report other than what we've already been through. Software and licenses is, that's because that stuff has to be paid ahead of time.
Correct.
Does anybody have any comments about these? I take that as a no.
I move to
And you-
approve.
Go ahead, Terry.
I move to approve the financial reports.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Pulver's report, I believe.
Well, or unless you have a report, Frank.
Oh, I'm missing that. I had really nothing to report. No, I'm just hoping that we all get vaccinated as soon as we can, and this comes to an end. But I have nothing particular to report. No.
Right, and I don't believe we have any public comment. And for correspondence and communication, I did mean to put on the agenda, and I apologize that I haven't, that we did get notice from the Community Foundation for the Greater Capital District that there is some funding. The amount of available distribution from our endowment fund this year is $4,238.47. And they need some direction about whether we would like to write a grant for that or whether we would like to have it reinvested. What we've typically done with this fund, which has a balance as of today of $150,253.90, is that because we're looking at it as a long-term endowment, that we've typically just had them reinvest it rather than take any of the income. And I think that we're in a position right now with our bank balances that we don't really need the income. So I would suggest at this point that we continue to have that income reinvested.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, I make a motion that we reinvest the distribution from the Community Foundation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, so I skipped over this. So is there any other correspondence or communication that we need to discuss?
No.
Okay, then we are up to you. Sorry.
Yep, that's all right. So since we last met, we had this special meeting to decide how we were going to react to these cluster declarations. And since we had that meeting, the criteria for declaring the cluster zones has changed. And the main criteria initially was this 10-day period of the 7-day rolling average of infection rates. And we've kind of sped right through those. So if that was the criteria that we would be using by this Friday, we would estimate that we would be in a red zone. But the governor has added this new criteria, which is a little bit tricky to keep track of, which is the hospitalization rate and whether we're on track to reach a 90% capacity in the hospitals. Then we would go straight to a red zone. Apparently, maybe it's a little bit unclear bypassing the yellow and orange zones and going straight to the red zone. So it gets a little bit tricky to find the data and to track them. And it becomes a question of whether we want to revise what our plan was to respond to these cluster zone declarations, or stick with it, that we would back up for each one of the zones. As I said, the infection rate is growing quickly across the state and here in Saratoga County. And whether we want to consider, as I say, revising in what circumstances we might take steps back in our phased reopening.
So this was the governor only very recently started to play with the criteria.
That's correct.
And my understanding is that the governor himself called it kind of complicated, and like it's not really clear how this is going to play out, like how it's going to interplay with the cluster zone things. There's probably some staff, I guess, who are not comfortable with the infection rate soaring as it is. Should we wait to see how the state, if they do anything with the cluster zones, if they continue to use them, or it's not really clear how this just interacts with the cluster zones and
Well, wasn't he going to release some guidelines really soon about this, Ike?
I thought that he might today. There might be some new guidance about it, but I didn't see any forthcoming.
Because
But
I
you-
think all the school districts, everything is going to be in this same position, right? Trying to.
Correct. So, and I think the guidance about schools is changing, and people are changing their minds about school closings may not be such a good idea, but but I guess what I heard him say most recently was he's going to leave all of that to the local districts to make their decisions.
It seems
Yeah.
to me we need some kind of guidance from somebody, from the county or the district or, if he's not closing retail down, if he's not closing, it seems odd to close, to reverse, right?
Right.
It seems like whether, I don't know how long you give that for them to give us some kind of guidance, but
I mean, we could wait. We could wait and then have a special meeting if necessary to discuss it if it gets more defined.
And we haven't even really had an opportunity to have the conversation much internally, because we're sitting here, I'm tracking all of the data and hunting them down as much as I can. But there is a lack of clarity, and it is complicated.
If we were to detach the library plan from the changing definition of the cluster zones by the state, we would need some new language, right? For
Correct.
what kicks in the various stages of the library plan.
right, which makes it seem more like we need some of their clarity.
That sounds right.
Well, are we, if going by the plan we have in place right now, we would be moving to a different phase, Ike?
No. I mean, yes, I mean, there are 4 more phases of our plan, but I don't think that given the state of the state at the moment that we would be ready to accelerate through that plan. I think we would stay where we are.
Mike, what is your personal feeling about this for the safety of the staff and so on?
My feeling, I do feel a little bit like I think I shared with you all this article from the Times, and there is news that hospitalization is a lagging indicator. And so there is some sentiment that if you wait for hospitalization rates to skyrocket, then you've lost valuable time and you've possibly made people sick who didn't need to be sick. So that's my concern, is that if you're going to wait till there's no more room in the hospital, or you're headed to that place where there's no more room in the hospital, it seems like we might want to err on the side of prevention rather than cleaning up after ourselves, so to speak.
Well, when they're tying the hospital rate, that's when it gets to be 90% capacity, they're tying that to like full shutdown, right?
They are, and there doesn't seem to be any talk about, and that goes straight to the red zone, about going to a yellow or orange in between. So it's a little bit unclear.
Yet there are parts of the state, right now that are still considered microcluster zones of yellow and orange.
That's correct. Yep, and they all, yes, yep, and in Finger Lakes and in Western New York and in the city, and I think also in Mid-Hudson. So just about
Right.
everywhere, but the Capital
Out there,
District and
right.
Mohawk Valley.
Would it be possible to peg the library plan to the definition of the cluster zones at a particular date? That is to say, so that we don't have to keep shifting with the shifting state definitions, to say we're going by these definitions as they existed at whatever date, assuming that we felt comfortable with what was defined at those days, at that date.
So, but you mean so we could go back to the date when we created the plan, right? Which was
exactly.
as of November 24th, I think is when the meeting was.
In other words, if those are the criteria that we felt comfortable with, that would permit us to keep with those criteria.
I guess the only thing is we might be shutting down earlier than other people if we do that Terry. I think what I would like to do is have us relatively the same as the community, as far as like what stages we're moving at. And I think from what you're saying, Ike, since we don't really know how the new phases are gonna work with this new criteria, maybe we should wait and see if there's any more information coming out, from the state, so we can understand how to reevaluate these phases. I think that's what you're suggesting. I don't know, or maybe I'm suggesting that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're suggesting that, but I would suggest that, we might wait a little bit to see if there's more guidance forthcoming shortly, but I don't think we want to wait too much longer, to be perfectly honest, just watching what's going on around us.
And what
also-
about the other libraries, Ike?
All right, and that's what I was just about to say, that I can let you know that it's been, actually, maybe if somebody else from the library here can remind me, a week ago today, I think that Schenectady County closed all of its libraries to in-person service. And I think it was around that same time that Albany County did the same.
And what were their infection rates
They
compared
were,
to ours?
at that point, they were higher than we were then, but lower than we are now, I believe.
Okay.
It feels like a really sticky situation to try to, I feel uncomfortable saying to our community, you can't now access any resources for who knows how long, when you can go shopping and you can go everywhere else. That feels weird. And yet it feels odd to be stuck without really clear state guidance. So whether you want to even set a special meeting up at the end of the week and see if by then we have something clearer that that we could quickly vote on.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable because, as I said, we haven't even really had much of an opportunity internally to have a discussion about what this new, additional criteria means.
Or even it may mean that then what they now say is going to be a yellow, is going to be a yellow designation as what before was an orange, or however that is, that we could change our criteria around to say, well, maybe we're not comfortable following exactly what we did and we want to move it up, but that. What does everybody else think?
I think that's a good idea. I think we need the opportunity to see if there's more information out there to give us a little more guidance.
I'd also want to emphasize staff input. That is, if staff feel really uncomfortable about keeping the library open, even if technically the community guidance says that the library could stay open, I think that needs to be given a lot of weight.
I agree with you, Terry.
I think both cases, right? Like what Katie was saying in terms of just shutting the doors for the community suddenly may not be warranted when other places are open, but also like making sure that our staff and our community are safe is important too. So I'm with Katie. If we get more guidance and you want to have another meeting, that's just a quick, let's redo this. Is there any way we can communicate with the public about sort of apart from this meeting itself, which is open to the public, sort of where we are headed, and sort of what direction the library is thinking of going? Is that something we can do? So people are not surprised,
I mean, we have done, we've communicated the plan that we created at our
Right.
special meeting. And so, and for now, that's the way we would
you think
react.
that's enough then for right now?
Yes, right, until we have a new plan.
That's on the front page of the website, I think.
It
Right.
is, yeah.
All right, so
Yeah,
Can-
so Ike, how do you want to do that? Do you want to set something up right now temporarily? Do you want to just be in touch with us by email as this week progresses?
Well, if we could get something on the calendar, I think that would be good.
Okay,
If we maybe could aim for Friday.
all right,
Does
I'm going to
that-
grab my calendar.
does that work for
Sorry,
people?
everybody.
Because next week is already the holidays and we're closed on Thursday and Friday next week. And my plan was to be off for the week.
Did you make a proposal of time, Ike?
I don't know, how do people feel about Friday, about this time on Friday? I know 5 o'clock on Friday is no fun, but
I can do
Not
that.
going anywhere, so.
Yeah, as long as we keep it short, that should be okay.
Okay, works for me.
So we're saying, we're setting this contingent upon need.
yes, yeah. And we'll put it on the calendar, and then if we need to cancel it, then we'll cancel it, so.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Ike, in your report?
I don't think so. No, except for today started the strategic planning focus groups via Zoom, and they carry on for the rest of this week, including right up until Friday afternoon. But it seems like we've got a good response to the call for people to sign up for these. So,
There's going to be like a community leaders focus group. at
there
some-
is, that'll happen in the new year after the holidays. And that's actually not on the calendar yet, but yes, that's in the plan.
And how did you do with the number of surveys that ended up coming in?
You know what? I haven't gotten a recent update from them about that, but I know that it was way, way over what they anticipated getting.
Great.
Okay. These use statistics, do they have any value?
Not much, except for to illustrate that a couple things. You know, our circulation is increasing. We're at about 2/3 of where we were before we shut down
That's
on a monthly basis. But you'll see that the digital circulation is way up there compared to the previous year, which is exactly what we would have anticipated.
Well, that's great. 2/3 is pretty good.
And then you'll see the multitude of ways we're using Zoom here. And the social media is interesting since we've been promoting on Facebook our English language learning classes. We're getting people signing up from around the world. So we're getting lots of engagement from places outside of the country on the Facebook page, people liking and wanting to know whether they can come to those programs.
Okay. Was there anything in the social media report that,
No, just to this 373,000, a 524% increase in impressions on the Facebook. And I think that is from this attention that we're getting from other places in the world.
Okay, where are we?
Department reports.
Department reports. Jen Ferris, is there anything of value in this report?
No, maybe next year we can compare like March to March. I don't know, but yeah, not at this time.
How's it going, Jen?
It's going well. It's interesting that we have little bursts of activity that seem overwhelming, but it's not even that huge. It's usually around lunchtime and when people get out of school and work. Otherwise, in between, there's some good lulls where we can get some work done. And staff are getting used to, our procedures that we have in place of, not sharing desks and telling patrons, can you hold on a moment? We need to clean and we'll get to you soon. So it seems to be working out.
There's a 50 person capacity limit.
Correct.
And we're not really approaching that, right?
No, I think even today we had like 35 people in the building and it seemed like, wow, it's busy. And it was. So I can't even imagine what it would look like with 50 people in here.
Okay. Thank you. Laura?
Well, I guess you kind of read it, so I won't go over a whole lot. But Sarah's there pictured with the hat on, the cat ears. And, and one of the interesting things that a while ago she did, and it's way down the bottom, you probably maybe didn't even get to it. What a long time ago, she did a 10 Count the Jelly Beans book. And that had 600 hits on it. And it turned out that somebody in Saratoga told her sister who lives in North Carolina, and that person had her class and the whole school actually do that video to learn the counting skills. So it kind of floored us for a while how we would be getting so many hits on that one thing, but that's it. And I guess the most popular things we've been doing are the craft bags, the take and go craft bags, some of which are in connection with Sarah's toddler story times, and some of which are just random. And Renee's doing a series, the letter of the week, and we're up to D, and that's been really popular. And Heather's doing one also with the teens. So the rest is kind of the same thing, really. Oh, and the mitten tree was downstairs, but the Cornell furnishes it every year, decorated with mittens and scarves for people to have. But now we put it upstairs instead because it wasn't getting that much use since not that many people come down here. That's about it, really.
Well, it sounds like the grab and go craft bags are popular.
Yeah, that's where our most business is lately, it seems like.
Okay. Thank you. Jen O.
Hello. So same for us, not a whole lot of new stuff. Did want to mention that our reference questions and phone calls seem to be fairly steady, not overwhelming, but fairly steady, as you can see from the 900 that we got. So people are still coming in and asking us questions and placing reserves, and actually asking for some reference and research as well. The other program I just wanted to point out in here that I thought was kind of interesting and unique is the Hiking the Hadrian's Wall program that was done in conjunction with the Adirondack Mountain Club in some folks that were with the Sierra Club, and which got a nice attendance, especially for a virtual program. Other than that, we just continue to look at taxes and AARP, which Trevor is working on, and we're trying to find a way to make that happen this year if we can. And right now, staff are starting to move ahead with planning for Saratoga Reads. So that's starting to take up the energy going into the next season.
And I see that there's outreach to the Greenfield Community Center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Callie had brought some craft materials to them as well. So craft make and takes seem to be a hit for all ages, whether they're brought to them or available in the library to pick up kits. So I think people are just kind of looking for something fun to do right now when they can't be out so much.
Well, yeah, they have Zoom fatigue, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Tara?
Nothing of significance to report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Staff continue to plug away at the Librarian's Guide to Homelessness online. That's been a really popular offering that I think a wide array of employees are taking advantage of. And I actually myself sat through a great webinar last week that was live and will subsequently be archived to this platform on stress and burnout, which I thought was particularly timely and had a lot of really great and practical things for staff and managers to try out in this time of prolonged stress. So I'm looking forward to in 2021, perhaps convening virtual discussions after these webinars so that staff can come together and we can stay connected, since it really has, I think, resonated with a lot of our folks, and sort of building on our learning in a collective way with some discussion afterward might make it more meaningful. So planning for that in the new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick? Is he here?
Yes, I'm here. Nothing truly exciting, just keep plugging away, making sure that we're prepared for whatever we can do with our public, making sure our equipment's functioning properly. We're ready for winter and trying to keep as many people happy as possible.
How much snow are we getting this week?
You don't want to be going to Albany. That's what I think.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rick. Okay. Special committee reports. I don't believe there are any. Reopening status we discussed. I think you talked about strategic planning in your director's report.
I did.
Correct?
That's correct.
Is there any new business?
There's not.
Okay, that being the case, we're adjourned. I guess we may meet next Friday, depending on circumstances. Thank you all.
Yeah, this Friday.
Or this Friday, yeah.
Okay. Oh,
5 days.
yes. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Good evening.
Night.
Bye.